Kia ora tātou, ko Andrew Doubleday aho. And we are today preparing for Sunday the 14th of November. For me personally, it means that as I'm preparing this, I'm facing the final week of preparations for Methodist Conference 2021, which is completely online. So it'll be a new experience for all of us. We haven't been here before, we haven't done this before. And it has some real challenges, but also some real potentials for being quite exciting. Anyway, back to today. Our Gospel reading for this coming Sunday is Mark 13, verses 1 through to 8. And so we pick up the narrative, verse 1. As Jesus came out of the temple, one of his disciples said to him, "Look, teacher, what large stones and what large buildings." Then Jesus asked him, "Do you see these great buildings? Not one stone will be left upon another. All will then be thrown down." And when he was sitting on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter, James, John and Andrew asked him privately, "Tell us, when will this be? And what will be the sign that all these things are about to be accomplished?" Then Jesus began to say to them, "Beware that no one leads you astray. Many will come in my name and say, 'I am he,' and they will lead many astray. When you hear of wars and rumour of wars, do not be alarmed. This must take place, but the end is still to come. For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places. There will be famines. This is but the beginning of birth pangs." As you hear those ending verses, it sounds like business as usual, doesn't it? Because we're so interconnected, we get to hear of these disasters and things that are going on across the planet on a regular basis. It seems just like business as usual. Now, the temple that they are referring to, these disciples are referring to, is of course Herod's temple. And if we look at the Gospels, we're told that it's already been 46 years in the building. And one gets the sense that it's still not complete. This is a long-term, impressive project. This is one that when people saw it and saw its courts and saw everything associated with it, there was a sense of, wow, that is amazing. So here they have it, and they, the disciples too. I mean, most of them are from Galilee. They're from up north, and so for them, this is kind of a bit of a tourist trip as they come into Jerusalem, and just again are wowed by the experience of this place, this amazing place. It's important to recognize that this is Jesus in his last week. He may have a day or two left to go before he is arrested, tried, tortured, and executed through crucifixion. He knows this. He knows that in spite of all the appearances of being successful, and his disciples still hadn't got it. You know, as they've been coming up to Jerusalem, they see, we're on a roll here. Everything's going great. They couldn't conceive the possibility that within a few short days, Jesus would be buried in a tomb. It just couldn't be on the radar for them. And as they're looking at this temple and seeing how amazing and solid and permanent it looks, they're thinking, wow. And Jesus says to them, it's all going to come down. All of it. And there's a sense that he's not talking just about the building. He's talking about himself. He's talking about this amazing ministry, the successful thing that has been built around him. It's all going to come down, he says. It's all going to come down. And it needs to. Because in order for true life-transforming stuff to happen, all this has to be flushed away. there's a sense that he's telling us that nothing is permanent. We spend a lot of energy as human beings hedging ourselves against the possibility of things going wrong. It's one of the key things that we do in our society. We store away and prepare for our retirement so that we can live a good and comfortable and successful old age. We can go out daily and play golf or bowls or whatever it is else that we want to do. Feeling secure, this need for security is very strong within us. The thing is, though, that it all ends. I was reading a very good article just yesterday. A friend sent me that was given at the funeral, and it had actually been prepared by Bishop John Shelby Spong. And actually it was quite brilliant. I was blown away by it. But even for him, there's always a point where it comes to an end. It's true for all of us. It comes to an end. And so often when something is at its peak, when something seems to be going at its best, the seeds of its own demise, its own destruction, are in that very moment. And it's true that we see it with Jesus. Jesus is at the peak of his earthly powers, at the peak of his ministry. And it's right at that moment that it's going to be taken away. And he's okay with that. He's okay with that. He recognizes how important this is, and he's accepted that and is in the process of still continuing to accept that. There's one of the things that we know of in business and other terms is the sense of this bell curve. That things do peak and then they go on the other side, and often there's a sharp decline. And we can see that as a truism throughout history, that things come and they go. Jesus warns them. He says, be careful, there are going to be plenty who will come in my name saying, I am he. I'm the one. They're not claiming to be Jesus. They're claiming to represent Jesus. They're claiming to be the ones who can save us. They're claiming to be the ones who can lead us to a promised land. They're claiming to be the ones who can provide us with the security and the comfort that we believe we need and often deserve. I think, you often hear me talk about it. We see it prevalent in the whole issue of prosperity teaching. Just give to us and everything's going to be fine for you. You will be prosperous. You will be successful. You will be secure. And Jesus is saying, actually, no. That's not where you put your trust. That's not where you put your faith. There's a place that is deeper than that. There's a place where we need to accept the reality that suffering could happen. It doesn't mean it will. Many of us lead what we'd call charmed existences, where bad things don't happen. And other people, I've observed this, just one thing after another. And Jesus is kind of saying, he's saying, none of that actually matters. None of it's relevant. The question is, how are you responding to this? Where are you putting your faith? Are you putting it in me? Are you going to trust me? Are you going to trust God to see you through? Are you going to maintain your integrity? Are you going to be true to who you are and to who God's called you to be? Because often that's what's required. The temptation is to seek the easy path, to seek the comfortable path, to seek the way that doesn't require any sacrifice, any difficulty, any real challenge on our path. Remember what Jesus says, broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many take it. Narrow is the gate, narrow is the way, and hard it is, and few find it. And I have a hunch that he's saying, be true. Be true to me. Be true to who you are and to who I'm shaping you to be. Don't let that be taken from you. Because my conviction is that it's ultimately when we're true to who God has called us to be, that it doesn't protect us from pain. It does, though, lead on the path of peace and serenity. It leads on that path where we know that we're not alone, where we're knowing that God is companioning with us, where we can face whatever is ahead of us with a measure of grace, with a measure of confidence, with a measure of strength, with a measure of peace and serenity. Now, this doesn't mean that bad things are going to happen. It doesn't. It does mean, though, that with whatever we face, we're encouraged to continue to trust to God and trust the way in which the Lord is leading us. I've found myself in positions from time to time where I've had a choice to make. And I've known that this is the choice which is the path that I'd like to be able to go. Because it's more comfortable. It's easier. It's less challenging. And yet I've also felt a deep sense of unease that if I choose that path, that I'm actually on what God's best for me might be. And there's been this other path, which sometimes has frankly terrified me. This role that I'm in at the moment is one of those. And yet there's a sense of knowing that I need to be willing to say yes and to trust Him. And it's as I do that that I experience this sense of peace. Paul talks about it in his letter to Colossians. He says, let peace be the umpire. Let it be the thing that decides. And it's like, for me, it's like putting on a coat. I'll put on this decision. How's this leading me? Where is this leading me to? Is this leading me to a place of grace? Or is this leading me where I'll say yes to this and know that it's going to be okay? But I have a sense of dis-ease in myself that I haven't embraced God's best. So I just want to offer that to you today. There are no guarantees. That success and the appearance of success is no guarantee that A, it's going to continue, or B, that God is necessarily flowing with enthusiasm for it. I think Paul says, in all things, it's required that stewards be faithful. And that's what we are. We're stewards of the grace that God has given us. And there's no guarantees of success, but there is the promise of the presence of His Spirit with us. God bless you.